Hello, 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 and welcome to Eve's Apple Radio, where we talk about the things that we want to talk about, whether it's politics, health access, pleasure, joy, music, it's whatever we want it to be about. And today, we are joined by Bontle Moka, Moka, Moka,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
Moka. I almost said Mocha.
I mean, you can kind of say it like that. My husband is originally, Cameroonian, but
Yeah.
he's American, so it's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Welcome, Bontle, and thank you so much for saying yes to this conversation. And I just really feel like I'm not going to do justice to your introduction, right? So, what I want you to do is take us on a trip, Bontle, and how you got to do this work and why this work is so important to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, firstly, thank you for having me. I, just appreciate the conversations we've had before, the things that
Yes.
we speak on, and yeah, I just appreciate, the time and opportunity to be able to speak on me and specifically my, I guess, story and why I do what I do. So I think to give a little bit more about me, I am a writer. That's like my love. I've published two books, but I advocate for endometriosis. But it didn't just start from nowhere.
Yeah.
I experienced it. I saw my own mother go through endometriosis growing up. So for me to be in this space of healing and all of those things is because I've gone through these things, and for me it's just basically sharing my testimony and helping others find healing. I don't know if you want me to go into the background of how I got to specifically speaking on endometriosis. I don't know if that's too soon. Um,
It may well be because what I wanted, where I would have liked for us to start
yeah.
is what is endometriosis and how did you know that it
Okay.
was endometriosis?
So I think I should just give a definition first. It's defined as tissue similar to the lining of the uterus, the endometrium. It grows outside of the uterus, usually in the pelvis. However, I have to say it has been found in other parts of the body, and so it is a whole body disease. It
Yeah.
causes usually painful periods, back pain, knee pain, leg pain, can cause infertility. There is no known cure for it, and they say generally the standard to diagnose it is through laparoscopy. However, I think more specialists that can recognize it have done it through the transvaginal ultrasound and
Right.
other maybe history and that sort of thing, and maybe can find it in surgery as the main standard. But yeah, it's just this debilitating condition. There's four stages, but the symptoms and how excruciating maybe the pain might be and your symptoms don't necessarily go together with the stage. So you might have stage one and have really excruciating pain and symptoms. You might have stage four and experience nothing at all. So, just to maybe make that clear. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And for me, because I saw it, funny enough, I only much later in my life recognized that I think I could have endometriosis. I struggled from day one with painful periods.
Yeah.
So I did, I think, for a long time think, oh, okay, I mean, this must be normal. My pain was like, is it because I don't have maybe the same threshold? Like, I mean, I guess everybody goes through it. So I didn't really think it was anything. But after a few visits to the hospital and a few times you think, like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
You start to think, no, this can't be normal, you know. And so if eventually, um, I at how old was I? It was in 2019.
Yeah.
that I got my diagnosis for endometriosis, and I had started my period at 11, 12, but at 16 years old, so I mean, I just it was a long journey, I don't want to lie. But yeah, I really, those few times when I did go to the hospital, like there was one specific time I remember when I was 16, I was in so much pain, rushed to the hospital thinking that like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna die. No one could figure out what it was. No one. They were just like, we don't know. Um, and so that journey of almost 9 years,
Wait,
just
Bontle, what do you mean you were taken to the hospital and everyone said we don't know?
so one day, so at the time I was in boarding school and I was just randomly sleeping. I don't even think I was like on my period or anything.
Yeah.
And I was taking a nap. Next thing I know, I'm waking up and I'm just like screaming, like and it's building. I didn't scream from like right away, but I wake up and I'm like, oh, hold on, I'm in pain, and then
Yeah.
it just, it gradually got worse until I'm like, somebody get me to the hospital now. And I had a family friend drive me because my entire family wasn't in the country. My brother was at work, so it was just a weird time. But I guess by God's grace, my dad had just landed, and so we get to the hospital, and the doctors are like, "We don't see anything. We're gonna give her pain management." And I don't really think that helped until maybe hours later. Doctors are like, "Don't know what's happening." I mean, when they were able to get me to be like, okay, they were just like, "Listen, we can't see anything. We're not sure why this happened. Don't know." I think they probably thought I was having like a miscarriage or something. I don't know. Like, I just there was sometimes those looks, and I was like, look, it's not what you think. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
teenager,
Yeah, exactly.
likely to have done something, and
Hmm.
now we're here.
Exactly.
Do you, so, are you saying that part of the 9 years of waiting was because there is generally the idea that, well, periods are painful, one, and
Mm.
also that also just black people and health systems, right? Where you get in and people don't screen you intently to find something wrong. They've already looked at you and decided, she's 16, likely to have done something silly. Now she's in pain. We're just going to give her pain management and she's fine. So, do you think that some of the challenges around endometriosis are in part what you present as?
Yeah, I think that is actually some of like the huge issues where there is the aspect where you're too young for this. Like, it's normal. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. And then there is an aspect, I think, of what black people go through sometimes when it comes to healthcare. You're expected, you're a young woman, expected to have some level of strength and endurance. And, I guess in the name of saying you're being resilient, but it's become so normalized that your pain is overlooked. And so you are just maybe given the pain management and just like sent home, or you're told don't stress, and I think that's where the medical gaslighting comes in. And you know the journey takes a while for a lot of people that struggle with endometriosis, sometimes 7, sometimes 10 years. I recently spoke to someone, it's been 22 years that they've struggled, and then they got their diagnosis. So for me, I think I was fortunate because when I started to see that something was wrong, I wanted to go the natural way. And so I went to go see a homeopathic doctor. He pretty much saved my life at that point when I was 16.
Yeah.
And over time, I struggled with a lot of different things, but when I saw him again in 2019, I I I did choose, like, the medications that they prescribe and stuff like that. But when that got me in hospital. Then I said, okay, I'm going to go back to, homeopathic remedies. And I think that really, really helped me. So I think in trying to get a diagnosis and that journey, a lot of the time people are dismissed, maybe because of how you look, because you could be just a teenager who has seen too done the wrong thing, or you're black and you just have to tough it out, be strong.
Yeah. So you just touched on something which I think is really important to kind of spotlight as well, which is homeopathic remedies.
Mm.
So why was that interaction, that journey, um, different from what one would say modern medicine?
So with that, I think it's because it's viewed as like a holistic way of healing. So my doctor also looked at things in my life that could be, I guess, contributing to what I'm dealing with physically.
Yeah.
So it's looking at where you're at mentally, physically, emotionally, and then diet. How can we, and this is not to say that he magically found a cure or anything. It's just that has been the way that I've found relief. And I think some people, if they take that route, can be able to find a way to get to a place where they have endometriosis in remission, if I can put it that way. Because it's a
Yes.
holistic way of dealing with it. We talk so much now about gut health and, your mental health and trauma and all of those things. And I just think as people in our lives, so many things are just so connected, and you have to almost deal with them in order to heal. So that for me, that was the approach. It wasn't just here's some medication, go home. He like really looked at, okay, what else am I maybe navigating? And yeah, it just helped me. But I won't lie, I had to be consistent with my diet
Yeah.
and with a lot of, I think, the choices I was making. And in 6 months, when I was, say, 16 years old, after that incident, feeling like I was going to die, I had to be on this, I guess, regime for 12 months. In 6 months, I saw a difference. I saw everything change. I saw my skin get better. I had relief from my periods. Just everything. I felt like I had more energy. I could think better. It just, yeah, it helped. And that's in, I don't know, that was diet, that was traditional Chinese medicine, that was, trying to be active. I'm not very great at that still, but that was the approach. And even when I went back again, when I finally did see a gynae who gave me the endometriosis diagnosis, I took what she had recommended, thought, okay, I need to approach it this way. And when that didn't work for me, it almost like aggravated my symptoms. Then I
Oh,
said,
wow.
okay, I want to go back to um, the homeopathic route, and it really saved my life again. I don't want to lie. It's just being consistent isn't it's not easy.
A- And as so, I'm trying to imagine being in consistent pain, because what you're saying is that even when you're not on your period, because the understanding that you get is that, oh no, it's period related, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not at all. So what I would like to get an understanding of is, how does endometriosis affect the daily life of a person and their overall well-being? So a day in a life, a week in a life, of a person who struggles with endometriosis.
So you're actually touching on the campaign that I was working on during Endometriosis Awareness Month, where I was basically saying endometriosis is beyond the womb. And that was because a lot of the time it is seen as it's just painful periods, and it also just grows around this particular area. So I wasn't just speaking on like internally that it's just around this specific region on your body, but that it grows in other parts, but also the fact that it affects different all aspects of your life. So it could be different for different people. However, it can affect from your relationships to your career to your own self-esteem, mental health, how you view yourself, how you just live life, because it's just sometimes so unpredictable
Yeah.
that you could be shopping, which is something I've experienced. You shopping not on your period and you think you're in the clear, but I don't want to speak for everyone, but generally your pain is maybe at like a 4, just as a starting point. So if someone asks, so how you did it, it's generally not at a 0, but it's maybe at a 4.
At a four, that is so much.
But when you go to the hospital and you're like, where's your pain at? If I'm saying it's an 8, someone might see you and you're like, 8? What do you mean? But if I say no, I'm at like a 15 now, then you're like, okay, I'm really in pain. If you're at an 8, it's like, I'm in a lot of pain. However, this is not the worst that it can get.
I'm
You know that?
sorry, but 8 is close to 10. When you say 4, already I'm sitting up because I'm thinking to myself, there's like, when you have like a whisper of a headache, right? It's not quite there. And for me, I feel like that's like it's like, it's telling you that I'm on my way. So it's like a inception, right?
Right, right.
And then, so that's a 2 in my understanding.
Mm,
When you're at a 4, you have a headache.
right,
Okay?
right.
When you're at an 8, you have a migraine. Like you are not functioning. Nothing works.
Yeah,
Everybody needs to stop what they're doing and come help you. So when you're saying that like 4 is the starting, that is terrifying.
yeah. It's
Actually
it,
terrorizing if that's your
right.
consistent lived experience.
That that is more accurate. It's, I think, more terrorizing because you can't do anything if you're in that state. Although I will say, you find people being very productive, and because life is life and the world is the way it is, you kind of just you keep it pushing.
Yeah.
But once you're at an 8, you might maybe then go to the doctor, say, hey, yeah, it's serious. But then there's the point where now you're probably maybe not physically like screaming, crying, but you're on the floor or you're stuck in literally one place for 12 hours, which are things that I've experienced. You just in so much pain. Like, you don't have energy to cry or scream anymore. It's just too much. And you just are there holding yourself, trying to get through it. But 1 hour passes, 2 hours, 3 hours, 8 hours, 12. And you just like, yeah, it's tough, so you're either having to take medication, something that might knock you out, to not deal with the pain, or you're in the emergency room, and all of this sometimes is not sustainable because you find then you're taking painkillers more often or more frequently. You're in the emergency room all the time, but it, again, like I'm saying, I don't think that's sustainable, because if you jump at that moment when you're at an 8, for most people, I think that'll be all the time, to be honest, And so I don't want to also speak on people that have no symptoms, because some people just don't really have it that bad. But,
Yeah.
my experience was that it was that bad. Sometimes you just like sit and you're dealing with it,
I suppose also there's the thinking that like how many more painkillers can I take before something else, so then
Exactly.
I'm not dealing with just one thing. Now my liver's packing up or my
Mhm.
kidneys are packing up or something else is wrong because I also know that when you're getting medication, particularly, I'm going to speak about our bodies when because we live in these bodies. A lot of the times, there's a lot of cautionary tales. Your liver's going to do this, and then this is going to happen. At a time where all you need is help, and it's like, well, what is the shortest distance between my pain and
Right.
suffering, and getting some reprieve that's not going to end up breaking my body?
Mm-hmm.
And and I guess to some extent, I'm trying to understand. You spoke about homeopathy, which is something my mom's got lupus, and in fact, that's why she's lived this long. She went
Mm-hmm.
to a homeopath who supported her with primarily Eastern medicine, and
Mm-hmm.
because she was using modern medicine as well. I don't like the word modern medicine. I'll find a new one. We'll see.
Yeah.
But she was using both, as you say, and what the
Mm-hmm.
homeopath said is that bring me your stuff. Let me see what they're giving you, because
Yeah.
I want to see if I can support you in being well while you're taking this medication because it has side
Mm-hmm.
effects. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I guess my next question is how do we support? Because I have, and that's not because a lot of people don't suffer with endometriosis. It's just that a lot of people have opted to just not say anything because, oh, please,
Mm-hmm.
man, you, it's always you, I, always you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and it's being dismissed. But I in high school, a friend of mine, we didn't know what it was at the time, but then she also got her diagnosis in her early 20s, and she, in actual fact, had both symptoms, right? She had PMDD, and
Mm-hmm.
she had endometriosis. And her around when she was going to have her period, generally she was in pain, but then the pain was extreme, but also she went into like a deeply depressive state, and so she would miss like 7 8 days of school every month almost because she just couldn't. And
Mm-hmm.
I've often wondered, what are the things, how do we get better educated? How do you support her mom? How do you support and resource her mom? How do I support and resource my partner?
Mm-hmm.
How do I make sure that people in my community and the spaces that we're in, which is the work that you're really doing actively, understand this? How do we do that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think there still generally is a lot of stigma because even, in the space like that I'm in and trying to be in, there have been people that say, I don't talk about this, but I see what you're doing and I can relate to it so much. But it's so heartbreaking. You can't talk to, your own, say, close friends or family about what you're dealing with. And I've had some people who say, for a long time I couldn't speak about it, and then when I did, I found out that me and my mother were going through the same thing, and I said, that is crazy to me. If more conversations are just had between people, you discover that either people maybe want to understand, and unfortunately, because you don't go through it, you'll never fully grasp what someone is dealing with. But just trying to break the stigma and these taboos, it starts with really just talking about it and making it like normal to speak about it. I know that sometimes it's uncomfortable, or again, the expectations we have, say maybe in a South African context, and I guess specifically with Black people, how women are viewed and how they're meant to be strong, and the whole Mbogoto thing. Those things I think we're slowly unlearning, but if our mothers, grandmothers, aunts, everybody comes from a place where you kind of just have to do that, and the thinking of being so strong that you can't even show you're in pain, it makes it hard then for us. We're the ones who now have to open up, do the work of what maybe wasn't done as much before. So it's heavy, but I mean I've seen people talk about it more now, and just being honest. So I sometimes go through a space where I'm like, should I just be honest about like what I'm really feeling or going through, or should I hide? Because there's nothing you can do, even self. There's nothing I can do about it. The next person is not going to do it. Then if they don't understand, I'm frustrated. We're both frustrated because it's like, yeah, you sick again. You know what I mean? There's just like a lot um, that can take place. But I think having the conversations is a good start to try to just like break the stigma and help people around you understand what you're dealing with.
Yeah. I'm thinking about what you're saying until you're sick again. It's such a hard thing. Like, I remember the teachers would be like, "Oh, it's always you. Okay, well, we'll catch her up," you know? And it's so, like, it's humiliation on top of everything else that you have to go through. And when I'm thinking about what you're saying now, that in actual fact there is consistent pain, but it's only when it reaches that extreme that you kind of take a step back and or go seek out help. So even in the moments where everyone is thinking you're okay, it's because it's pain that you kind of can handle, whatever that means. Jesus. Um, but it's not that you're fine. Like, oh, I'm fine. Everything's fine, you know? And I suppose to my question then is, you touched on diagnosis earlier, that it took a really long time, but can you talk us through some of the barriers to diagnosis?
So I would say that we still have a long way to go with even healthcare practitioners that specialize in endometriosis.
Yeah.
Um, I think also I don't want to necessarily speak on like the whole world's context, but specifically in SA, um, the the taboo, that stigma, or the expectation that, I mean, just tough it out, like you'll be fine,
Oh.
you know, that ends up being, you get to a place where then no one's investigating further that like else could be wrong, and it's just like, no, I mean, it's normal, it's your period, you know. There's also again people not speaking out fully about their symptoms, like what they're going through. And then I don't know if this happens to everyone, but for me, I feel like I don't get enough time when I'm in the doctor's office to like speak about everything I'm dealing with. Like I feel like I have a cut off
Modern
time.
medicine.
Right.
Because
So
we're part of a supply chain now. Like, we're part of a services chain. So you've got a set amount of time to, you're essentially telling the doctor what's wrong with you. There's no investigation. Like, I've got a headache and my neck is stiff and my back hurts, and sometimes on my right hand side this happens. They jot that down, they give you medication, or if you're lucky, you lay on that bed and then it's like touch, touch, touch. The possibility is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they move on. And it's only
yeah.
when we're at 15 that someone then thinks, oh, you know what, maybe we should figure this out.
hmm Yeah. So it can be that, and you just like, okay, well, let me just keep it moving, you know. And um yeah, there's just like a lot of different things where I think sometimes maybe people self don't know. There's so many people that are like, I've never even heard of endometriosis. I just thought I just get bad periods and
Bad
just, you
periods.
know. hmm
So, something I wanted to touch on,
hmm
again, because we live in these bodies, um, someone who had bad periods goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, you know, some things are diseases because of weight. So maybe if you lose some weight, you'll see a difference in the way that your body is the way that you're experiencing your body. Some people will be told, oh, you know, the way whatever foods you're eating are definitely bad for you. And I'm just wondering, Uguti, is there an opportunity for a narrative shift around who gets who gets it. Like, who gets, is it a genetic thing? Is it a thing that happens to you when you're just a teenager? Is it like what, like, is there an opportunity for everybody to get on board about how do we get to a point where someone is suffering so much? One, because just because specifically the medical fraternity and healthcare workers, because yes, of course there's doctors, but then also, particularly in the South African context, there is primary healthcare, which is primarily nurses who see you and support you to get well. But what I'm trying to get at is how can we shift narratives around the way that endometriosis is framed? Because, as you say, it takes long to diagnose. So where in the story do we need to tighten the screw or unscrew? Where in this journey do we begin the shift around the stories that are told about it?
I mean, I wish, I knew, because then I think I would be a very important person in the endometriosis community, because that would help people get a diagnosis quicker. That would help, people researching. So I mean, I think research still needs to be done because they don't really know. And just what you're saying, you usually go to the doctor and they're like, yeah, well, if you lose weight, and I think it's the same when you get like, PCOS or fibroids and I don't know, meiosis, they all have
Yeah.
like very similar symptoms. So it can look like they overlap, and so sometimes that's how you get people getting misdiagnosed and stuff like that. But I think it's just a weird cycle where sometimes what they are recommending, if I'm being honest, will help you, but it's like, I'm in the situation, I cannot do that. I'm struggling to do that because of what I'm going through. But it's like, but just lose weight. But it's like, but I can't because of
I
X, Y, Z.
can't move.
Right. So I can't move. It's my hormones.
Yeah.
So it's just a weird cycle. However, moving will help you in, if you look at it long, so it's just like a weird cycle. So I don't know if there is like a blueprint or framework. I don't know what word to use for who gets it, because it's different for so many people. Some,
Yeah.
you know, some get it as children, not children, but some get it very young. They have the children to get it. Some get it when they're much older. I don't know if that's because of delayed diagnosis. It could be because of family history. I think some people, maybe do need to look into family history, but some might not know because those conversations aren't being had. So your grandmother, who was always in the hospital, like, why was she? You find out, oh no, she used to deal with this, and then you find, oh, the reason for her infertility or whatever issues she had, or she used to pop these pills all the time. You find there might be a link with family history, but because there isn't a known cause of it, we still have a long way to go. And I mean, there has been research done as well with a possible, I don't want to say cause, but a possible connection with, sexual trauma and endometriosis potentially. But I think it depends on each case. And yeah, that's why also healing isn't just a one size fits all, just give everybody this one thing, because there's so many different factors that contribute to your situation, and it can be tricky at times.
So, if you don't know the cause, I suppose it would be very difficult to treat, because it's then understanding why it's happening that then supports you figuring out what treatment is. But perhaps we can talk about support. So you spoke about homeopathy. You also, during the month of March, was talking about a lot about what help looks like for people who are suffering. And I would love to know, because you're giving this hot water bottle, this ginger, there's all sorts of tips and trips. And I thought that was really good, because sometimes, as you said, you just need the help. The lecture can come, But right now, I just need the help. I need to know what can I do to feel better, to actually move
Yeah.
to a point where I can do bigger, wider things. So, what does support look like for people around me is what I'd like to know, and then we can move to other ways of finding or making yourself comfortable or finding comfort and maybe also pain relief.
So I think just to go back on what just said about, if we don't know why, then it makes it difficult to get to a place of finding how to help. I
Yeah,
actually think that, not to be like insensitive or anything, but focusing on why is not going to necessarily help.
yeah,
And that's coming from me, who has questioned many times,
yeah,
why me, how did I get here, what did I do? And then so you end up sometimes asking why for not the wrong reasons. You obviously want answers, but you dwell on that. And so when it's like, I'm here now, I need to
yeah,
move forward, that's when I would say, I think, focus on getting the support from that point. Like, don't, you can question, but don't like dwell on it, because there's so many things you can point to that you might feel like, okay, this is my fault, or um there's just so many different ways that you might take on that, or you might find answers that actually that's not why. It might
yeah,
just be random, if I can put it that way, and I know it's not necessarily that, but that, I don't think, should be the focus or the start of how you get support or healing and relief, but I would say support would be, how do I put doing what works for you in like a I guess a better way,
yeah,
when it comes to people around you. And I mean, not everyone has people around them that will,
yeah,
one, either understand that, like, this is what I'm dealing with. Not everyone has that, but if you do, I think, again, be open, be frank, have those conversations. But if you don't, it's trial and error. So in this journey, something that worked for me, 5 years ago, say when I was starting the healing journey, if I am dealing with pains like today, it may not necessarily work for me now, you know. And in that time, over the years, I've had to change, adjust, try something else, do this, But I think winning the mental battle to keep trying, because it's exhausting to try
yeah,
and it doesn't work, to try and it works for a little bit, to try and then, it can be exhausting. So keeping your mind right, I think, is one of the biggest um, struggles or challenges. At least I think personally, and I think you spoke on PMDD, where that's maybe something you cannot necessarily control fully. So you
yeah,
have to somehow overcome here in your head,
yeah,
in order to be willing to take the steps to find what works for you. So there is a place for, I guess we're still trying to find a term for, modern medicine. And even my homeopathic doctor, he said there's a place for that.
yes,
At
yes,
times you're gonna need that. I'm not gonna be able to give you this. You're gonna have to go take that. You're gonna have to go get surgery. So it's not to completely dismiss that.
yeah,
I'm just gonna, drink my teas and stuff. But you have to, um, again, I guess they call it a healing journey, because you go on your own journey, trying to figure out what works for you. And eventually you find what works. But I think the challenge with it, because it's such an unpredictable condition, it's the consistency. So you're good for maybe a few months, or you're good for a certain time, but then maybe it comes back, or you know affects different parts of your life, that now maybe impacts your income, your relationships, so many different aspects of it. But I think trying different things, trying what works for you, is like a good step. And that could be different things. If you're like, the doctor prescribed this, I'm going to try it, do that. But if you don't feel comfortable taking something, don't take it. I think for me, part of my healing is also praying. If you
Yeah.
want to fast and pray, do that. I just think that's always my foundation. Medicine will be there, but I don't think it works without, for me, that aspect. You know what I mean? So I would say just it's trial and error with the support, but with those around you, being open. Unfortunately, you can't with every situation or every family setup, but finding a space or community, which is part of why like I started sharing, is because in the beginning I didn't feel like I could find a, a space that I could fully relate to. And sometimes there might be the space, but it's also like, now maybe I need a black sister to speak to, an older sister that knows the struggle more in depth to, you know, yeah, to like what I've been through, or what we struggle with in the space, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, I suppose that was going to be my next question is like how does it in the way that you're saying is that it's something that because it's unpredictable and it's not like I found my thing and I'll find it forever, and if I do this forever I'll be fine, and that's notwithstanding the lethargy that comes with kind of supporting yourself and medicating and being consistent and being active. How do we sustain relationships? And I suppose my curiosity is for the community around you, but also in an instance where there are romantic relationships, where there are romantic sexual relationships, and you're someone who is consistently in pain.
Yeah, so I think that can be a challenge because, at least personally, at times I felt maybe, unreliable or not good enough, or not fully a woman, or, it has definitely affected sometimes my self esteem,
Yes.
mental health, and those things. But I would, I think I'm very big on, what, this is one of those first date conversations. Don't waste
Yeah.
your time. Get into it straight. Say, hey, look, this is what I go through. But I know that it's not necessarily easy. But for me, that for me is just one of those things where I'm like, just be open, just talk about it.
You
And
just need to let this person know, but okay. As you can see, I'm a great person. I'm a catch. Okay. And this is what's going on as well.
exactly. So, you if you speak on those struggles from, I guess, day one, I think it makes it easier. Some people will want to, and genuinely so, attempt to give it a try. You date and maybe you get married and so on and so forth, and then it works out. They are supportive of you and they understand your journey. However, it's not for everyone, and I don't look down on anyone that tried and then couldn't take it anymore, because it's a lot, so I don't see anyone as like, why would you leave, or why would you not deal or put up with that, because it's a lot, not just romantic relationships, but also just, I think, friendships.
Yeah.
You end up just like, you cancel plans, and then you end up lying about canceling, or the reason you cancel the plans, because you don't want to use pain again. Or you know in a romantic setting, it's like, oh, I'm scared because if we get intimate, then I might, have to let them know, or I'm gonna have to deal with, possibly penetration, let's say, of whatever kind. um and you're dealing with, say, vaginismus, which is where it's painful to, like, insert anything, whether it's with a tampon, a finger, or whatever the case is. It can be painful, and so now you're thinking about all these different
All these
things,
possibilities. Yeah.
right? You're thinking about, okay, how will it be for me to get a job? If I get a job, I can't take so many days off. I you know, I'm spending all this money, say, in our relationship. Now you're affected financially. It's a lot. It is a lot to deal with. And I think you have to be brave enough to be honest from the beginning, because it's not an easy journey for someone to go on that journey like with you.
Yeah.
I've just been fortunate enough to have a partner who is like, treats me like a little egg and
Yeah.
gets me. And so I'm aware that not everyone has that, even in just like a family setting or a friendship circle. Not everyone has that. And I don't want to, I guess, shame anyone for not being able to handle that, because it's a lot.
And I suppose what you're saying about mental sturdiness then comes in there, when you realize that, yes, you are going through the most, but by virtue of proximity, people who really care about you are also trying to figure out that how they can support you better, and it's not easy for them, and it's the cancellation of plans, as you say, and embellishing, because you really don't want people to be like, oh, because it's that's it again, because and the thing about it also is that, like, as you say, you don't blame people, because sometimes it's like, girl, I know, but also just come, and it's like I can't, like, I'm literally, and it's a level of, I just want you around because I love you, you're my friend, but then at the same time, you can't show up. And even if I was like, I'm coming to your house, I can't be your friend right now because I'm going through
Right.
this thing. And
Right.
I suppose to a very large extent for me, who I suppose is outside looking in, I'm thinking about people who may not have the community, or it has the community and the great partner, but still feels like perhaps for mental steadiness you need external support. And I just want to really, really ask everybody, guys, like, getting counseling, contacting spaces like in South Africa, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, where you can get mental support. It's not a cop out. If you go to church, there's
Mm-hmm.
people who are counselors, there's different places where we can seek out help to support ourselves mentally, so that you then, I suppose, you don't feel the guilt of feeling like, I'm on top of everything else, everyone is burdened by me. So
Right.
being
Right.
able to seek out those avenues, for your mental well-being. And my
Mm-hmm.
heart is so sore, because I can only imagine when you see someone you love and just
Mm-hmm.
continuously feeling like that, like not well at all. And pain is
Yeah.
such a strange thing, because if, for example, I have gallstones, other
Oh God.
conversations. So
Sorry.
it does go to a point where it gets super, super painful, and you can see
Mm-hmm.
and that's not even 3 times a year when the pain
Mm-hmm.
comes. But you can see when the pain is there, how everyone who cares is kind of like standing and holding their breath, because they really don't know what to do. It's like, how do I make
Yeah.
you more comfortable? What can I bring for you? But you can't, I don't. So to that,
Yeah.
how are you, I feel like there's a question I want to ask, and I'm struggling with framing it. How are
Mm-hmm.
you moving? Buntle, how are you moving from moment to moment? How are you? Yes, I understand mental steadiness. Yes, I understand a spiritual leaning as well. But how do you move from moment to moment? Because then the pain subsides.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get a deep breath in. But how do you, knowing that it's going to come again? How do you?
I actually like the way you put that. How do I move from moment to moment? It's really moment to moment.
Yeah.
It's, you know, when it's here. And I don't want to lie and say that I'm in the same place I was when I first got diagnosed. I would be lying if I said there hasn't been progress. Unfortunately, there have been other things come up like PCOS, and my tubes and stuff like that, the challenges with that, mentally, emotionally, and even just physically. But I know that I have been in a worse off place. So I'm definitely grateful for progress. But I think getting to where I am now and being able to like maybe speak on it in this position I'm in where I have more good days, if I can put it that way, or better
Yeah.
days, um, it it wasn't easy. I think because you're not just dealing with endometriosis, you're also dealing with life. um i've I've had my fair share of having to heal not only endometriosis but also sexual trauma. I'm a survivor, and I believe in fully embracing that for myself in order to heal,
Yeah.
also linked to how I approach endometriosis. It's like it's here. I want to heal. I want to just fully embrace it. Not to make it who I am or my identity, but just say that this is what I've gone through, and take it one day at a time. Like it's not my fault. you know. It could have, yeah, it could have either been worse, or I don't want to say I try to see the positive in it, because there's sometimes like a toxic positivity that like
Activity.
happens around there, and I'm like, no, it's a very real thing. It's a lot of moments, of crying, of grieving your own body or a life that you thought you could have. And I still believe some of the things are still very much possible.
Yeah.
I just think that now it's gonna maybe look a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's just, again, moment to moment, because in those moments where like, okay, I really I can't do anything. There's like I can't, or if I'm in that space where it's really hard, but I have to get up and say go write an exam, because getting my degree, I was in a lot of pain. I took a whole year off after going back when I had already taken a few years break. Finally went back, and then I'm like a year in, and it's like, nope, you need to heal, you're not
Yeah.
okay. Took a year off, went back, and I missed so many classes, and it's really, I almost feel like I was crawling through that degree, because
Whew.
it would be hard just showing up. And yeah, like it's not easy, because you're also dealing with a lot of depression. um at the time I wasn't dealing with as much anxiety. I think it's maybe as I got a little bit older, and I think once I turned 30, like the PMDD and all of that kind of went a little bit crazy, and so now it's a
Yeah.
little bit more of anxiety. You're on edge, because you're like, that's a new symptom, or it's a good day, but how long is it
It's
gonna
been
last?
3 good days.
Right. It's like this is suspicious now. I don't trust
Yeah.
it. So, but what I found is, on the days that are hard, just go through it. Um, I advocate to take painkillers. I don't want to thug it out. To be honest, I'm just like, give me the drugs. um,
Yes.
and when you can't, you can't. To be honest, you have to set boundaries. But on the good days, it's weird, because on the good days I want to do like everything. I want to go shopping. I want to go brunch. I want to do everything.
Yeah.
But then I'm probably gonna pay for it later, and I'm gonna pay for it for like the next 2 weeks. But because I had a good day now, and I don't know how long it's gonna last, I make the most of it.
Yeah.
But I might pay for
Because
it
I
later.
wanted to also ask you, like, what are your things? Like, what are your go-to things for comfort, for
Mm,
pain, kind of for supporting yourself to kind of level your mood and your feelings? Like, what are your
mm.
comfort things? What do you do? Because earlier you spoke about tea.
Right,
So, what are
right,
your
right.
things that you use for comfort, for pain support, and also just to mentally find yourself in a good place?
Mm. So yes, I'm a big tea girly. So ginger tea is great for
Yeah.
inflammation. Um, there's also like a variety sometimes of like ginger tea, ginger and lemon, ginger and mint, ginger, but like it generally has ginger.
Yeah.
I put turmeric in everything because that's supposed to help.
That girl is an
I
anti-inflammatory girl. She's a hardworking lady, that one.
hard at work. Listen, I also I've been I have to put like heating pads everywhere, so that's why I have like different kinds. I have one for like, my leg, and then, front, back, and sometimes I'm just like sitting on the couch. Just it might honestly just be a regular day, and not on my period, not doing anything, but I have to sit and keep the room warm, if I can put it that way, because I
Yeah.
believe if that's warm, the rest of my body generally like will be okay. Um, I I enjoy sleep, but sometimes I'm forced to sleep so that I don't deal with what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I didn't maybe as much, and so there's also like the guilt that comes with resting a lot. Although rest is necessary, I like to just relax, and sit around. But I feel like I like to do that because it's been necessary for me, and I've had to find joy in doing that. Not to say I love a good brunch, wine tasting and that sort of thing. Um, but when I can, I do whatever I'm able to, whatever I have access to. I'm not a big gym girly yet. Right now, I'm just walking, and I've seen the difference it's made in terms of, I
Yeah.
think, my hormones, because I also got diagnosed with PCOS, so those have been like completely out of whack.
Yeah.
But also, I will say that from what I've been told, I I was pretty much cleared of endo and fibroids. I had surgery, and then again I went on the homeopathic medication. So those I've been cleared of. It's just right now I currently deal with my blocked tubes and PCOS. And so having like those symptoms still can affect like your mind and your activities and stuff like that. But I will say, like, again, over the years I've gotten much better, and it's really taking it one day at a
At the
time.
time.
Like, you have to take it one day at a time. And where I'm at now is, I just say I'm romanticizing my life. I really, I'm just trying to enjoy. I make little things into like big moments. So if I want to dress up in the house, I really do. I put on makeup, put on a cute dress that I'm just like, when am I going to wear this? I'm just like, wear the dress. Just wear
just
it.
wear just wear the
You
dress.
know, if I need to have like my magnesium drink supplement, I put in a wine glass, and I'm just like, I am,
Yeah.
stuff like that. It helps to.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit like delulu, but it has helped me, and I've seen the difference.
We know what you already know what reality is like. So a little bit of Lulu never hurt
Just
nobody.
a little bit.
Never hurt nobody. Okay, we're coming to a close, and I suppose one of my biggest questions is around some of the really good advice that you got, and it's the understanding that um, this is not medical advice. This is not something that you're saying everybody must do. It's just something that different pieces of advice that you've gotten that you've felt has been able to help with the journey, the healing journey that you're on.
Hmm. Um, there's so many I want to share. But I guess it might be a cliche one, but it's one I think about all the time. That healing is not linear. It's
Yeah,
not a straight line, especially with I think endo. It One day you're good, one day, the next day you're not. One moment in the same day you're okay, and then that evening you're not okay.
yeah,
You might be on medication and it works for 6 months, and then one day it doesn't work for you anymore. Then you have to try something else. So you know, even if you do get to a place where you're good, there might be, say, a flare up that you're like, but I'm good. I've been good for the past 6 months, and I've been healing, and I'm happy. And then you're in like a super like depressed state, or worse, suicidal again. And so you have to know that it's not a straight line. It's not easy. But I guess in a non-toxic way, you know, you're stronger than you think.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be hard to override that, because it's like, I don't want to deal with it. And this is coming from a place where I know what it's like to feel like I'm at the end. I'm giving up. I'm doing it now, but because I believe that, you know, God gave me a supernatural revelation of sorts and saved my life. That for me was like, okay, well, this is not the way that I need to go out. So let me fight. Let me be willing to fight and find out why I'm here. So I think, you know, for people to be struggling with it, I think just know that you can be used in the space you're in, the state that you're in. You're not useless. But there's ups and downs. You know, it's not
Yeah.
easy, but you're enough. You're amazing, even as you go through what you go through. You know.
And I think that that's so beautifully put, and it's such a huge reality check because to some extent we live in a world where we really do want a fix, and it's so important to know that sometimes the fix is the continued figuring out the dips and the highs and the cute dresses and
Mm.
the magnesium concoctions in wine glasses
Right.
and the brunch, but also it is the heated pads and the ginger tea, you know. So it's not going to look the same every day. The important thing is that you're still here. And the important thing is that as hard as it can be sometimes is to ask for the help that you need because
Mm.
we want you here. We really
Yeah.
want you here. We really, really, really want you here. And I just want to say thank you, Bontle. I know that this is a subject matter that we can't exhaust, and I'm hoping
Mm.
that we can pull you in for the PCOS conversation as well because it just seems like a natural continuity to this conversation.
Mm.
I have to say that I have been shaken and stirred as we're having this conversation, but that's important for the learning process that we're in. And so I want to say it's a wrap from Eve's Apple Radio. Thank you to Bontle. We're definitely having you back
Thank
to speak
you
about
so much.
PCOS and a reality check that is very, very needed,
Mm.
and a sense of responsibility for ourselves and those we're in community with to see what we can do differently because
Mm.
sometimes friendship and love is not grand gestures, it's little things that we can show up
Yeah.
just to make sure that people know that we love and care for them and we want them to be well. And
Mm.
so I would like to ask that since you're listening until this far, you can share your comments or you can follow us on all social media platforms. It is Eve's Apple the Mag. On Spotify and YouTube, we are Eve's Apple Radio. Until next time, it is goodbye and it is thank you.
Hey.